Hello, everybody. My name is Martha Alter Hines with Living the One Light. All right. In this video, it's gonna be a little different than my typical videos, but I'm excited to do this with you. And I'm actually feeling a calling in general to start bridging real Gaia, real cosmos into what we're feeling into together in these videos more and more. So I don't know, this might become more of a typical way I do it. But today what I'm going to be doing is first the topic that has been arising for me today that I feel really called to and excited to make this video about is the Chiron retrograde. And I'm going to be showing you why this is so important to me. And then I'm going to take you down to the ocean again. This time I'm hoping to get there around low tide and really be with the spirit of the whales and in particular, and I'll show you why. Yeah, because there's something I've been sitting with in terms of where Chiron is going retrograde that's kind of puzzling me, basically. And I would love to, in this video, hold space for us to collectively feel into this. And because I think this Chiron retrograde and in general where Chiron currently is speaks to a collective dilemma that we all have collectively, we definitely have, and I think a lot of us are sitting with, how do we heal this particular dynamic in the world and in ourselves. So let me explain. So I am recording this on Saturday, July 26th, 2025. And we have Chiron going retrograde on July 30th, 2025. And so this video is relevant for now, but it's actually really relevant for, I would say, the whole next year and even more, because what I'm about to show you is where Chiron is going retrograde. And therefore, because Chiron moves relatively slowly, Chiron is in this part of the sky for a long time. And the retrograde itself, like the stationing retrograde, is just highlighting these themes. So it's especially highlighted right now, but it's relevant anytime pretty much. Okay, so this is what happened. So I have been preparing for the next section of the Star Speaks course that a lot of you are in. And as I've been doing that, in the Star Speaks course, we're going section of the sky, like a section at a time for 3 months at a time. Whichever part of the sky happens to be rising in the evening, that's the part we're focused on. So I've been doing research on this next part of the sky, which happens to be the part of the sky where Chiron currently is. And Chiron is going retrograde next Wednesday. Okay. And it's stationing retrograde right now. So let me show you this part of the sky because it brings up themes that are, again, particularly potent in this moment of the planet. And, with Chiron sitting there, it's like, you can feel the pain point of it really significantly. I'm also heading into my own Chiron return, so Chiron is with my own Chiron at the moment, so it's probably especially alive for me personally, but it's definitely a collective theme. Okay, so let me show you, and those of you in the stars course where we'll have a chance this week to really feel into this even more, but I wanted to open up this conversation to everybody because it's so important. And I would love to hear everybody's feelings, thoughts, etc. All right, let me get this up for you guys. Okay, so here's where Chiron is in the sky. So Chiron is going retrograde at 27 degrees of Aries. But in terms of where it is in the constellations, it's very solidly in the constellation of Pisces or the fish. And then what you can see is it also falls right beneath the constellation of Andromeda and actually very close to the Andromeda galaxy. That is a whole thing. I love the Andromeda galaxy. I'm not going to get into that super strongly right here. In the stars course, we will dive into that a ton this month. But I did do a video with Margot Zen a year ago on the Andromeda galaxy, and I can link that here. And I've also channeled the Andromeda galaxy energies in at least a couple other videos as well. So I'll try to link, yeah, I'll link those here. Any and all of you can enjoy those. I really, really, really love the Andromeda galaxy. But basically, Chiron right now is on the ecliptic and between the Andromeda constellation, right under the Andromeda galaxy, and then on the southern side of the ecliptic is Cetus the whale. Okay, so what's really significant about this whole part of the sky is that, among other things, it depicts, in the Greek mythology, it depicts the Andromeda, Pegasus, Medusa, Perseus story. And the gist of the story, on a basic level, is that the Andromeda was a beautiful princess, and her parents, Cassiopeia and Cepheus, who are also constellations up here in the same part of the sky, they, long story short, said that Andromeda was, the most beautiful in the world, etc., and that angered Poseidon or Neptune, who actually happens to be in this part of the sky too at the moment, interestingly. And Poseidon was so angry that he had sent Andromeda, the princess, to be chained up, and Cetus the whale, or Cetus the monster, the sea monster, was going to kill her. And then, long story short, Perseus, the quote unquote hero, had been off on this quest and had just slain Medusa and had cut off Medusa's head. So that's a whole thing. And you can see the constellation of Perseus includes his hand holding Medusa's head, and the star Algol is Medusa's eye. Okay, so Algol is right here. So on the one hand, we have this quote unquote beautiful feminine, like innocent, woe is me, victim, kind of, the young, beautiful, stereotypical, beautiful princess who needs to be saved over on here. And Perseus comes along and saves her while holding in his hand the head of the dark goddess, Medusa, whose head he just cut off, right? So it's this very, you could say, polarized depiction of the two sides of the goddess, or two sides, not the two sides, but two sides of the feminine. One that is demonized, one that is put on a pedestal, to the point that actually it's even an out of balance being put on a pedestal, because Cassiopeia and Cepheus, the parents of Andromeda, really anger Poseidon by boasting so much about the beauty of their daughter Andromeda. Okay, so you get it. Like, there's this very, very out of balance approach to the feminine. And then Perseus, the quote unquote hero, uses the fatal stare of Medusa, whose head he just cut off, to kill Cetus, who's about to kill Andromeda. And then Pegasus, who actually emerged from the blood of Medusa's head. So Medusa is actually Pegasus's mother, and Poseidon is Pegasus's father. Pegasus emerges from, had already emerged from the blood of Medusa's head being cut off, and he swoops in and carries off Andromeda and saves her. Okay, so it's this really, really fascinating, very complex, very complex, multi-layered story, right? And on the one hand, it's very easy to be with this story and feel like, wow, this is a patriarchal, very out of balance, very out of whack depiction of um, hero swoops in and saves pretty girl, and the older, powerful feminine is demonized and slain. And in the meantime, also, this Cetus, the quote unquote sea monster, or in other cultures just considered like a whale type of figure, is also demonized and killed. And interestingly, Cetus the whale is then, once he's killed, the story goes that he is then sinks to the bottom of the ocean, very, very far away. And just as another side note, the sinking to the ocean very, very far away happens to be to the south of the ecliptic. So becoming less and less visible to people in the northern hemisphere and kind of relegated to this underworld part of the sky from the point of view of people living in the northern hemisphere who are, Greeks are living in the northern hemisphere, right? If they're relegating Cetus to that southern part, from their perspective, Cetus would then become less and less visible to them. Yeah, so this is all really, really interesting, and there's just so many layers in all of that to begin with. But then so one of the many layers that I sit with all of this is, okay, so on the one level, that story and this depiction in the sky of that story, you could easily say, is a reflection of the current day or an eon's existence of the split between the masculine and the feminine, and the demonization of the dark feminine, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It's clearly that kind of pain, that kind of separation, that kind of overly putting the light feminine on a pedestal and then demonizing the dark feminine, that's still going on in the world, on and on and on. Okay. That's all true. And so with Chiron there going retrograde, of course, part of my question becomes, well, how do we heal this? How do we heal this rift? Or it's really actually an illusion of a rift. So, and what's really interesting about Chiron in particular going retrograde there is, of course, Chiron is the wounded healer. Chiron is considered the rainbow bridge. That's one way that people talk about Chiron, as being the rainbow bridge. And also Chiron is half human and half horse. So often Chiron is also thought of as an energy that helps us to remember, literally remember, the reality that we are earth, we are animal, in addition to being divine, in addition to being human, in addition, there's no real separation between, we're not animal or human. Humans are animals. And so Chiron can help us come back into the reality of our bodies and back into for me, the remembering of ourselves as both feminine and masculine, actually, as well. And so Chiron, in a sense, is maybe the perfect energetic to be sitting there right on the ecliptic. So right in between these constellations that are on the northern part of the sky, Perseus, Andromeda, Cepheus, Cassiopeia, and Pegasus. And then south of the ecliptic is Cetus, that sea monster or the whale, right? Who was pushed down to the underworld and down under what was more visible for people in the northern hemisphere. So Chiron is there on the ecliptic, literally as a bridge being and a healer being, now stationing to go retrograde right in the middle of them. Yeah, it feels like such an opportunity for us to be present with this. And the Andromeda galaxy part, really calls to me, and that's a whole thing that we're going to be with much, much, much more deeply again in the Star Course, or you can go and listen to the the previous videos I've done on the Andromeda galaxy, because that's a whole topic and a whole gift, I would say, in this Chiron going retrograde time, that I'm not gonna bring in directly right this minute, but is so, so, so present. What I feel a little more called to bring in is to, again, I'm posing questions more than giving answers here, because I don't know the answers. This is an ongoing thing that I'm sitting with personally, and as a huge part of my work is, how do we bridge? How do we remember all these parts of the feminine, the light feminine and the dark feminine, and then the masculine, and then how they've all been, we're in this illusion that they're all torn apart, basically. And we've experienced the pain of that illusion of it all being torn apart really acutely. But we have to bring it back together. We have to remember the wholeness. We have to embody the wholeness of it in ourselves. So how do we do that? Yeah. And so one of the things that comes up for me when I think about the Medusa myth, again, I'm not giving answers here, I'm just posing questions, is, let me get to the next slide. Why is it not? Hang on. Hang on a second. Come on. I'm gonna have to come out of screen share and reshare it to get it to go to the next slide for some reason. Yeah, hang on. I will be right back. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so here is a zoomed in version of the Perseus constellation, and you can see very clearly, hopefully, here's Medusa's head. So here's Perseus holding Medusa's head. And then here's a statue of the same thing, Perseus holding Medusa's head, the blood streaming out, right? Medusa is had all the snakes on her head, and her hair became snakes. And the story goes that if she looked you in the eye, then you die, basically, right? So there's this demonization of her power. And this is, when I think about, and I think when many of us think about the Medusa myth, I mean, it feels, if we identify, which I certainly do, if we identify at all with the power of the feminine, the dark feminine, and dark meaning, not meaning bad, dark as in life force, the creation of existence, the force that birthed galaxies. And I think, many, many, many of us on a soul level are that. That is who, well, all of us are. We are creation itself, and that's the dark feminine to me. And so when I identify with the dark feminine, and Medusa is clearly a depiction of the dark feminine, and Perseus comes along and slays her and cuts off her head, that feels pretty violating, right? That feels not good. That feels like patriarchy gone wrong. It feels like Lilith, also another dark goddess, being shunned from the Garden of Eden, that kind of a thing, and then demonized. Okay, so, and I think that's a natural response to have, and I think it's a response a lot of us have. But then I think about, this is an amazing book I highly recommend called Buddhist Goddesses of India, written by Miranda Shah, who is a professor at Columbia University. So she's done, extensive academic research on Buddhist and ancient Hindu goddesses. And in this book, which I love, 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 of course, there are many Hindu and Buddhist goddesses also with their heads cut off. Okay, but it's a very different feeling. This to me doesn't feel like a patriarchal depiction of like a dishonoring of the feminine. This feels like, to me, when I engage with these goddesses, I feel this is about liberation. This is about or my interpretation of, at least, is this is about the cutting of the head is not about killing the feminine. It's about liberating us from actually illusion. So yeah, when I have I've channeled a lot of goddesses, because I'm channeling the book Goddesses Speak. And so I've channeled Medusa, which, I mean, I absolutely love Medusa. I love, love, love Medusa. But there's a pain for me in the Medusa myth, right? And there's a pain, a feeling of betrayal in that story. And with these goddesses, these transcendent goddesses, the feeling I have in my body when I become them is just total freedom, and like the power of my soul, my spirit is fully here and is set free, in a sense. And so much more there, right? So I'm sitting with this question again. This is something I really want to explore in the Star Course this month, but also I want to just invite all of you to share with us your ideas, because I think this is such an important collective question, is how can what's a healing way to approach the difference between these two? And what is the difference, or is there a difference even, right? And here's another depiction of, a Hindu or Buddhist goddess with the head severed. Yeah, this is a wrathful, they're called wrathful goddesses. And this is not something that's been done to her. This is her, this is my way of feeling it. This is her own spirit, her own soul being ready to be free of illusion. And to really fully become who she really is and what life really is. Yeah, very, 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 this is a very empowering feeling, versus the Medusa one, which can feel extremely, extremely painful and disempowering, right? And it's like, I want to tease out, what is the difference here? I think that's a really important question. Yeah, and then just here's a depiction of that Cetus creature. And again, it's like, in one way of thinking of Cetus, it's a monster. And in other traditions, this same constellation is just a whale. So, do we need to demonize it? I don't know. What does it do to demonize it or not demonize it? And do we need to kill it and then have it sink to the bottom of the ocean far, far away? Or is there a way that we can be with all of these energies that brings it back to some kind of healing, some kind of wholeness? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So I think, mainly what I'm gonna, again, this is just me posing questions, and I'm gonna do, in this next part of this video, I'm gonna literally walk over to the ocean and let us sit there and be held, and I'll probably channel when I'm over there to really be with this question. How so Chiron is going retrograde again under the constellation of Andromeda. So the beautiful princess being saved being saved by Perseus, who's holding the head of Medusa, and then Chiron is between Andromeda and Cetus, the whale, who Perseus kills with Medusa's head. So it's like, like, is the solution to this story, Pegasus flies off with Andromeda, Perseus marries her, they have a bunch of kids and live happily ever after? Is that really the healed conclusion to the story? Not to me, because we still have Medusa's head over here cut off, and we have Cetus the whale killed and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. It's like we need, to me, if I'm thinking in terms of, I used to be a psychotherapist, and I used to specialize in trauma, and I used to do a lot of projective kinds of therapies, so like art therapy and narrative therapy and those kinds of things. And when I think in terms of narrative therapy, for example, it's like the story is still stuck. That's what feels in my body. And I think for me, this is just one idea or one thing coming up for me, is that for me, a contrast between the Medusa story and those transcendent Buddhist goddesses with their heads cut off is that the ancient Buddhist goddess version to me feels complete. It feels integrated. It feels like a narrative that is whole. That's what it is. It's in integrity of wholeness. And the Medusa story, it's like, it feels like sort of mid thought. It's like, it's not bad because to me, it depicts what has been going on. Literally, it depicts this time of great forgetting, right? And so I get a little nervous when we label these stories as bad, because the reality is they are depicting truth. They're depicting something that's really been going on. So for example, if I had, when I was a therapist, I worked with kids, adults, especially kids though, who have been through really traumatic things. And if they made a drawing or they told a story or they did play therapy that depicted a really scary situation where there's people killing people and somebody yelling and I don't know, somebody getting thrown off a building or something, I wouldn't label that as bad, right? I would never, ever, ever label that as bad. I would feel really, really sad, and I would feel a lot of deep grief and maybe anger. I would feel a lot of empathy for what their story is sharing. But I would recognize it as a reflection of what is going on inside of them, because probably what they've experienced, right? And so the goal wouldn't be to get rid of their story. The goal would be to sit, kind of this Cheroklo energy, to sit there and really just be present. And over time, the goal of the therapy itself, again, wouldn't be to make that story go away. The goal would be to eventually help the child or the adult or the person complete the story, in a sense, to come to a place of wholeness and integration with the real trauma that did occur. So it's real trauma. We have gone through real trauma in this time of great forgetting. I mean, and there's so much trauma on this planet, right? It's not incorrect that this separation has been there and still is there. We're still working it out. Speaking for myself, I mean, we all have traumatic experiences between the feminine and the masculine in some form, probably. I'd be shocked if you haven't ever, ever, ever experienced that. It'd be amazing. You're so lucky if you haven't. But we can look around the world and we see it immediately, right? So we probably feel some kind of grief or betrayal in the dynamic between the feminine and the masculine on some level. And that's reality. But what feels needed, or there's an opportunity here for, or healing for, is for us to hold space collectively, in a sense, for us to complete the story, right? To create, to let the story itself and the energies of our own hurt, betrayal, pain, to integrate themselves and really deeply heal and come back to wholeness and completion. Hope that's making sense. Yeah, feels so important, so crucial. And again, this is, my own Chiron return story. So yeah, but it's relevant for the collective big, big, big time. And we have Chiron, again, the wounded healer, who's also the rainbow bridge, who's also the bridge of us being earth and human and divine all at the same time. And he is a healer, literally. He's going retrograde right there, like right in between Andromeda and Cetus. Is like, beautiful opportunity. Okay. So yes, I would love your thoughts. And then part 2, I'll snap my fingers and be at the ocean and yeah, see what emerges from that. All right. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you in a minute. Okay. So I first want to just give you a view of this amazing beach. I'm walking down to be with such an amazing spot. And there's virtually never people here, which is like, what? And it was just low tide about an hour ago, so now the water's coming back in, but I see lots of snowy plovers down there. And yeah, I'm excited to sit down there with you. All right, so now I am down at the ocean, and I'm going to find a place to sit and really be with the whales. I also just recorded the walk and talk video for those of you who feel called to be part of the walk and talk membership. And I was talking about the ocean beings here, which I'll talk about it in future videos as well. I mean, in these bigger videos, I will channel those for you guys at some point also. Yeah, but you can see it's low-ish tide and just so unbelievably beautiful here. So let's find a place to be, maybe over here. There's the bluffs and this white rock, exquisitely beautiful. So yeah, this looks like a good place. Don't like to get too close in case of earthquakes, but I think we're good here. Okay. Yeah, so as I was talking about earlier, yeah, I mean, for example, who is Cetus? That constellation is, what does it feel like to be with that constellation, thinking of it as a sea monster versus thinking of it as a whale, versus thinking of it as something else. Of course, the reality of it is infinite possibilities, and right, but if I think of that part of the sky is often called the celestial sea because there are so many constellations related to ocean and water. There's the sea goat or Capricorn, then the water bearer, Aquarius, then Pisces, the fish, and on the north side of the ecliptic, like those are the constellations, the main constellations on the ecliptic, where the sun goes across the sky. But north of those constellations is that whole Andromeda, Perseus, Medusa, Pegasus, Cepheus, Cassiopeia set of constellations. And then below the ecliptic, or to the south of the ecliptic, is Cetus, that sea monster, or the whale, and Eridanus, the river, and and so this whole part of the sky, again, is often equated with the celestial ocean, and it holds this story of, like, if I think of the ocean is totality, it's wholeness, right? It's the all that is, it's Pisces on one level, and then it's holding the story of this betrayal, this separation, this terror, and the feminine in danger in various ways, and in danger of being killed and then being saved. Andromeda and Medusa actually being killed, her head cut off, and then the head being used to kill the whale or the sea monster. It's this whole conglomeration of victim, perpetrator, perpetrator, victim, victim, perpetrator, all mixed up. And really a depiction of, in a sense, maybe the illusion of separation played out in all different forms within the ocean of the cosmos, the sea of the celestial spheres, which is kind of how it's been. I mean, really, actually, right? We're, even in the time of great forgetting, we are held in the all that is. It's never not true. Yeah, so I don't know. Let's just take a moment to just be here with the ocean. The actual Gaia ocean. This is the Pacific Ocean specifically, so the Pacific Ocean, as we know, is absolutely massive, and it could fit all of the continents of the Earth, and still there would be room for more. There would still be water around all the continents if they were put together. So this is one edge of that massive, massive, massive ocean, sea. Yeah, way across over there is Japan and the rest of Asia. To the southwest is Hawaii, the land of Mu. And then way off over there is the land of the Maori people, New Zealand and Australia, and somewhere in there, way to the south, is Rapa Nui, or sometimes called Easter Island, right? So all this vast, vast, vast space of ocean land. So yeah. So let's see. In whatever way feels right for each of you, each of us, we can just take a long, slow, deep breath and become really present as Gaia, and feel how Gaia is largely ocean, water, and these beings, these creatures like the whales are ocean. Gaia beings. So ancient. And they have these powerful relationships and ways of relating and communicating as Gaia, as sound, as cosmos. There's a dog being very loud. Hang on 1 second. Okay. Yeah. It's really fun that I'm talking about the sound of the whales, and then this dog starts wailing. That, like, never happens. Alright, we'll give a minute, whatever it's doing. Yeah, so again, the whales are really calling me, and so however it feels right, we can just tune into these massive beings who are right here off the coast of California. They migrate up and down the coast all the time. I've seen many of them. Incredible beings. And let's see what they want to say through you, through me, either in words or beyond words. So, yeah, let's just give them a chance to speak. Okay, so taking a long, slow, deep breath. And close our eyes or keep them open and feel the presence of either one or many of these whale beings, or maybe a different kind of ocean creature being is present for you. And I'm just going to let this one I'm feeling speak through me. But please feel free to just stay in contact with whatever is moving for you, if that feels right or better. Okay, hello, sea, earth, creature, beings of land and ocean. So I particularly want to remind you of the relationship here of Gaia as a being of sound, a being of vibration, a being of the totality of the song, the resonance, and the quality with which the ocean itself is similar to a megaphone, like a transmitter of sound and vibration waves, literal sound waves, and of course physical waves that you see, but something that we have stated through Martha previously that's very key and important, we want to remind you again, is that when you forget about the oceans, You forget about the role that the oceans themselves of Gaia play in existence. So the density of the earth part of Gaia, the land part of Gaia, is very different than the density and the role of water and ocean itself. And there are so many components to that. And of course there are similarities as well. But one of the things we actually want to point out, and we would like to speak more and more frequently through you, through Martha, through just existence, is, first of all, we have been forgotten. Similar to Cetus the whale being pushed down into the southern part of the ecliptic, where the people giving Cetus the name couldn't see it any further, any longer, or not as well. The life of the ocean has been relegated to a kind of unknown status or forgotten status in a lot of ways. Trash is literally dumped into the oceans, for example. And yet, Gaia is a being of ocean and land. And one of the many, many, many qualities of ocean and land that we want to remind you are similar is that they both hold crystalline memory. They both hold crystalline ways of being, each in their own ways, and each hold a frequency of reminding all beings of Gaia, which includes you and your body, how to come back into the crystalline frequencies of who you are. So we're going to say more about that in a minute, and we'll make future videos about that as well. But just to come back to the point about the role of the water and the oceans themselves. So again, what we're saying is that the density of the land of Gaia is very different than the density and, of course, the fluidity of the water of the oceans of Gaia. And so the oceans actually serve not only for Gaia, but in the cosmos. The oceans themselves of Gaia are similar to if you imagine a loudspeaker of like at a rock concert, and there are the speakers that transmit the sound for the concert itself. The oceans are transmitters of sound and waves in a way that the land can't be. It has a different capability. So one is not better or worse, they're just different. They have different roles. And even within the land portion of Gaia, of course, there are many, many different types of her body of land. So there's the sand, there's the dirt, there's the root systems, there's the rock, all different kinds of rock. There's the lava, there's the inner earth chambers, and they all serve different functions. And then similarly, the oceans have a particular function, and the crystalline quality of the salt water ocean holds a different valence and frequency than fresh water bodies of water, of course, right? So, taking a long, slow, deep breath, I want to just give a moment for your bodies to come back to this remembering, because again, even as you know this very well, your own bodies are largely water. And the parts of your bodies you think of as more solid, like your skin and your bones and your hair, those are similar to the parts of the land of Gaia. They hold certain functions. And then the waters and the blood and the more fluid parts of your body also hold different frequencies and different functions. And of course, they all work together. So again, taking a long, slow, deep breath. Another key component of what this time of great remembering is really about, and that we are here to be part of supporting this remembering in you, is the whale beings, the dolphin beings, the ocean beings, and really actually just all beings of Gaia, including you, have a natural way of being in continual, constant, easeful, easy communication and relationship with all realms of beings throughout all of time and all of space, including the entire cosmos, including the stars. And we as whales are beings of Gaia, but Gaia is a being of the cosmos. And so humans often think of, the five senses, and one of those senses being sight with the eyes. But one of the senses that's absolutely forgotten about is what you might think of as that third eye way of seeing and being in relationship. It's that when you are a being of Gaia and you're focused only on other three-dimensional beings of Gaia, you think about being able to see them, relate to them through those five senses. So you think about, for example, being able to see, like in front of Martha right now, is the ocean, is this sand, is the kelp, the seaweed, is the sunset, and she's, using her physical three-dimensional eyes to see that. But another component of your sensing that is coming back online so beautifully for so many of you right now is one that is natural to all of us, is that we see and we communicate not just with beings of Gaia, but with beings of everything, beings of cosmos. Because again, Gaia is cosmos. There is no separation or difference between Gaia and the cosmos. It's like saying that your little toe is different from your foot. Your toe is part of your foot. So yes, you could point out the little toe as being the little toe. The entire foot isn't the little toe, but the toe absolutely is part of the foot. So, and the foot is part of the body. So it's such an incredibly incorrect perception that there is such a thing as earth and sky, or earth and cosmos. The earth is part of the cosmos. And so when we are in a relating state of being with life, we don't only focus on what's immediately here as part of Gaia. We're in continual, constant relationship with absolutely everything else. And so we have this way of being, this way of seeing, with what you might call the third eye, but it's a vision of everything. And that's a humongous part of what's coming back alive in you. very, very, very powerfully. And so we're going to be continuing to support that for you in this time of great remembering. So in terms of the question that Martha is sitting with the Chiron going retrograde in this part of the sky, the celestial ocean, I can invite you to take some more long, slow, deep breaths and the real answer I would have to that whole question is essentially a soft remembering that it's all true. It's like a soft remembering of when a child wakes up from a nightmare, that the nightmare itself was scary. Let's say the child wakes up and is, crying and very upset because of the nightmare. You might hold the child and assure them that everything is okay, and yet the feelings they're having are real. It's not real. The feelings are real, even if the dream maybe was or wasn't true. But the feelings are absolutely real. And so when I think of, or when we're present with this whole notion of the mythology of the Andromeda, Perseus, Medusa, Cetus, the sea monster, and Pegasus story, the feelings that dream or that story come from are very real. And the feelings that story evokes are also very real. So it's not real. And yet, when I feel into that as a being of ocean, a being of cosmos, a being of me as whale, I feel compassion. I feel a bit of sadness, but I feel just a sense like I would with a child. Mostly of tenderness. And so I would offer for you to take a long, slow, deep breath and really feel the totality of the ocean holding you, holding me, the literal Gaia ocean, but also the ocean of the cosmos, the ocean that is everywhere. The ocean of the cosmos holding Gaia, holding the sun, soul, holding this kelp that was in the ocean and is now washed up on the shore, feeding the land creatures here, all the beings being nourished by its beauty and its nutrients, all these little sand fleas, in this incredible ecosystem of this ocean place, where ocean and land meet. And really where they or one, because then as the tide comes back up, this kelp will be washed back into the ocean, and the cycle will continue. Just like these stories. So, I invite you just to feel the medicine of that, of being held in the totality, sort of like a craniosacral session being held, where you are held as the totality that you are, and in all of the feelings that you have or have had, the stories, the narratives that are there to be held. To be given deep listening, compassion, forgiveness, and eventually to dissolve back into what we all already are, always were, and always will be. And so it is. Amen. Okay, that's pretty cool. That certainly helps me, answers my question on certain levels at least. And I would love, love, love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, share with us anything that came alive for you in any of this. I hope you enjoy this ocean sunset time. I absolutely love it here so much for obvious reasons. It smells amazing. I wish I could transport the smell of the seaweed and the ocean. Incredible. And actually, before I end, I will just get up and walk with you down the beach a little bit, because it's just so amazing. I'll give you a few minutes just to be with it. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you again really soon.